Now we are now recording. So welcome everybody to the second Saturday's poetry reading, virtual version. And we've been doing it since June. And the interesting challenge, the COVID has been a terrible thing for all of us on many levels, but there are, if you look carefully in all the darkness, you can see some light as well. So we have people that join us for the virtual that wouldn't be able to make it up the stairs to the church. And we actually have had more people participating in the virtual poetry than we had when we did it live. Couple of things here. We started promptly right at 11 o'clock, as I mentioned earlier. If you would like to read, so we do have an open read at all these things. The protocol is you just go to the chat box and put your name in chat, and I will keep track of who has asked to read, and I will call upon people to read when we get to the open read. I'll call upon you in the order that you appear. And if someone has difficulty finding chat, what I always do at the end is I pull all the heads up on screen and I say, listen, if you want to read and you didn't put your name in chat, just wave and I'll promise to call on you. We do believe that feedback is a gift. So we've been doing this since June. Barbara and I always look at the feedback with Kathy that comes in from people. So if you have suggestions in terms of how this experience could be improved, if you have things that you think we did well, things that we didn't do well, please let us know. That's just a very, very easy email, Daniel B. Kerr, no punctuation, at verizon.net. Promise to consider carefully any thoughtful feedback that you provide. After I get done just calling it to order, I'm going to turn it over to Barbara. And Barbara will have a brief introduction, and Barbara normally reads a chat poem or two. Then we're very fortunate today to have our George Wallace as our featured reader. So we'll have George. Then we'll have we'll do the open read. And as I mentioned before, we'll do the names in the order that they are in chat. Please don't activate your mic unless I call upon you to activate your mic. There are now over 23 people in the room, and I'm sure you can all appreciate if you had 23 voices and background noises and phones and barking dogs, it would be a bit much. So we'll have the open read. We'll call back George for an encore, and then we'll also have some concluding remarks from Barbara. The scheduled time is from 11 to 12, but if there are a number of you, this is a big group today, 23. So if we have people, a number of people that want to read, a large number, our tradition is to give everyone a chance to read. So we may flex up until 12:30. Since we've done it since June, I think the latest we've ever gone is probably 12:15 or so. So officially 11 to 12, we will flex if we have a lot of people that would like to read. Just a brief before I turn it over to Barbara. So All Souls Church, historic All Souls Church in Stony Brook, is proud and very grateful for the opportunity to host these programs. We view it as part of our outreach to the community. We always say the church is not just there for the people who worship there. The church is there as a resource to the community that we serve. One of the ways that we serve the community is our doors are open every day for prayer and reflection. And if you look at the picture on the left, it's a very interdenominational here, ecumenical. We bring all the food that we collect to St. Gerard's Roman Catholic Church in Port Jefferson Station. They have a very, very large food pantry there. They feed hundreds of people. If you go to the lower left-hand corner, in normal times, we have the Saturdays at 6 music series, classical music series in the church. If you go to work over to the left, next one over in the bottom left, you'll see a picture of the church lit with mystical light. Kathy Donnelly has brought Gregorian chant and the music of Taizé. We do that at the church once a month. Go up above that, you'll see a group of very attractive poets there, led by Barbara. We do the annual Souls for All Souls 5K race, 2K walk. And each year that we do that, we've got a group called the Live Poets Society, led by Barbara. Go to the upper right, you'll see there that in normal times, you'll recognize Robert and you'll recognize Barbara. That's the ceremonial passing of the twig. So the official, when Barbara was anointed the new poet laureate, Robert Savino, a previous poet laureate, handed her the twig and all the authority that implies. Lower right-hand corner, another thing that we do is we do Native American drumming there once a month as well. So this is led by an Inca Indian who's also a chiropractor, interesting guy. That's Native American drumming. That's a healing practice that goes back thousands of years. If you're interested in any of those events and want to be on our mailing list, just send me an email and I'll be happy to add you to our list. So that, by way, that is an introduction. We're glad that you're here. And Barbara, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you want to turn on your mic, please, and I will clear the screen for you. Okay, Barbara, just turn on your mic. It's got to be on there somewhere. There you go.
All right, it's wonderful to see all of your faces. I always feel a little uneasy until I see all of your faces. So
Hello.
to this Saturday morning, I wanted to tell you to please give all your thoughts to Tom Carlson. Tom Carlson is one of our workshop attendees. He's been there for years at LIPC. And at the last I heard, I think it was Saturday, he was in the hospital with COVID. He has pneumonia, but he is not on a ventilator. He's on oxygen. So please send your good wishes to him. We're all keeping in touch with each other at LIPC and trying to get as much news as we can. I'm going to start by reading one of the newer books I got. This is a book by Bruce Johnson. I'll hold it up. It's called Borderlands and Dreams. And I was so happy to add this to my shelves. And I'm going to read a short poem by his. You know how far I got before I wanted to read one? First page. So there were lots of poems in here that I wanted to read. But this is one that I really loved. It's called Deeper in Memory. Some memories are deeper, secluded by time, the overgrown haunts of childhood left behind. If one could see them, they would look like scars on skin, patches toughened by the imperfect process of healing. We stroke the scars to feel the curious roughness that reminds us these injuries are not fatal. Poke at them, scratch them, the pain is gone. But sometimes with just the right twist of a prodding finger, one thin nerve remembers. And that's Bruce Johnson. That's a more recent book. I know often I will read books from a long time ago, but this is current. All right, just give me a minute, please. All right, now comes my favorite part. I'm going to introduce George Wallace, and this is such an honor for me. I've known George for so long. George is the first person I met in the poetry community in around 2000. He'd become quite a force in the regional poetry community by then, but I didn't know that. He invited me to the barn in Huntington, and nothing has been the same since. You could say that's been the case for multitudes, not only from Long Island, but all over the world. From his family roots in Brooklyn and Long Island, and from experiences living and working in Northern California, Massachusetts, North Carolina, Oregon, and the United Kingdom, he's created a grassroots network of venues of poetry. And we're all very familiar with all these venues that he has created. His poetry is imagination-based, emerging from a process of wordplay and surrealist deconstruction into a final form that is typically characterized by accessible narrative and forceful rhythmic impetus. You'll find his work bears the mark of 1960s concerns, particularly the social witness and aesthetic consciousness of that time. I was just thinking that a lot of us have those concerns. He was named the first poet laureate of Suffolk County in 2003. Please welcome my friend, George Wallace.
All right, thank you, Barbara Southard. Thank you all for coming today. I see a lot of good friends from over the years, going back all the way back to 1988, when I first returned to Long Island and became part of the poetry scene here and helped to, with many, many others, to grow it, including a number of you here. I say Bruce Johnson, whose poem you read, he was with me at the barn when we started the barn back in 1992, I think it was. And some of you go back even further. I see Mary Jane Tenerelli, who's just a stone's throw away from me at the moment. Hey, Mary Jane. Everybody else, Tony, Ed, Herb, good to see you. Barbara. Gladys says, ladies' iPad. Well, I'm not going to waste. Oh, Gladys. That's why Gladys. It just says ladies' iPad on it. So, all right. I have approximately 20 minutes to read poetry. I actually have till 11:55, but we'll see how it goes. You know, it's all recent material. You may have seen it on Facebook. I like to keep it fresh, and I haven't done much of reading, you know, as you know, because of the being stuck at home, as many of you. So it's nice to trot these out and see how they sound out loud. So I'll start off with a Long Island poem, then an American Road poem. Then I'll do some of the poems that reflect on the circumstances of 2020 and what we've encountered and experienced from my perspective, my personal take on some of these events, and end up with a poem about peace. Try to bring it out, bring the show out in a positive way. So my first poem is Tucking In a Winter. It's called All In for Winter. I'm all in for winter, and the army of black beetles digging trenches in the subversive weeds. All in for winter. The sugar maple on the hill, spiked and tapped and ready to bleed sap for men. The pond well frozen, the neighborhood boys polishing up their skates or wading hip deep in the snowy path through oaks and pine to catch the yellow school bus before dawn. Snow spray filling the mouths of girls and boys. Class let out, and now they're tumbling home over each other, laughing bodily and crying. All in for winter. The cattle in the hay, the apples stacked chin high, potatoes staring blind as lumped proletariat in the dark, obedient cellar, and swallows nesting in the eaves of Jesus. On the weeping woman in the mansion giving birth to secret religions by candlelight. I'm well in for it, and the troop of redbirds patrolling the garden, and the caterpillar slumbering in his silk cocoon. The house cat by the window, calm in his fringe pajamas, eyeing his lone jay in the garden, screaming his bright internationalist scree. The taste of pipe tobacco lit up in the shadow of a barn, sweet. The smell of wood smoke in the blue dusk of evening, alone. The fat old wasp nest in the rafters, that's at the barn, rattling with the dead wings. The century-old cry of a baby cradled in the legendary arms of trees. All in for winter. Thanks. Carolyn Emick, Richard Bronson, Kathy Angelou, Julie Sue Sloan, Jay, Judy, Deborah, so many of you. Kelly. Second poem. This is an American Road poem. Boys, this is a dream. Night, deep, rich night, criminal with hope and rich with expectations. A little too rich for an old man dancing down Riverside Drive at 3 a.m. in the morning, but hey, boys, this is a dream. The dream is a GTO, and it's 1964, and I am 17, and America is a yellow rose. America is expansion, and the road is empty. Let's roll. So I cut into gear and make my way. I step on it. Best shot is to get moving fast before the world wakes up. Grab the Henry Hudson, head north, blow your way into the passing lane, slip across the bridge, head for Albany. We could make Albany by dawn. We are left, and then it's straight 3,000 miles to San Francisco. This is before Route 80, by the way. Oh, hell yeah, easy. So I grip the wheel and I step on the gas. That's core metaphor for raw, immense American power. But the joke was on me. I got the metaphor wrong. The petal was an egg, and the eggshell broke, and the engine of American commerce was a fake, all billboards and false advertising. Yoke all over my shoes, cars, vans, bread trucks, cross-country rigs, everyone flying every which way, everywhere 1,000,000 miles an hour, except me. I was broke down in the passing lane with fists shaking the windshield, a maze of glass, headlights splintering my eyes. And I was not 17. I was not 17. I was awash in capitalist elbows and get the hell out of the way, old man trash talk and irate expressions. It must be dawn. It must be dawn, I cried. And it was. It was American dawn, casual American dawn on Riverside Drive, gateway to America and world hegemony. And all across America, Kennedy was dead. It was 1964. The dream was over. So here's a yellow rose that will not open with ashes for eyes. Thank you. Thank you. Now to some of his topical poems from 2020. If only I could, this one is for the North Carolina nurse, physician who came up to work in the emergency rooms in New York City during the early COVID crisis here in New York City, and who caught COVID, went home, tried to get cured, tried to come back, but the emotional stress of it killed her. And her name was Lorna Breen, one of the early victims. And this is for all frontline workers during this COVID epidemic. If only I could play Foray's elegy like Lorna Breen. This poem for Lorna Breen, B-R-E-E-N, and the strength of her compassion and the unspoken depths of her wounds. Dr. Laura Breen, age 49, chief of emergency medicine at New York Presbyterian, who loved playing cello and snowboarding and posted pictures of it on Facebook, who was at the center of it all. The impossible situation come horribly true here in New York City, in the streets and hospitals, the great pandemic of 2020, 2,000 inpatients piled up in every bed behind every hospital door in New York City, ambulances idling, 3 bodies deep in the parking lot, dead on arrival, and nobody else to deal with it but those who took an oath to do so. The rest of us in town and out here on Long Island ordered to avoid all contact with death. This poem for Lorna Breen, all at the limits of her endurance when the virus took her. Sick with it first, then she recovered just enough to go back to work, and she tried to do her job, and it killed her, said her dad, also a doctor in Charlottesville, Virginia. And this poem for every doctor, every nurse, every emergency worker in New York City and the world, all day, all night at the center of the storm, how to stand at a window at 7 p.m., offer applause and then return to the silence of our rooms, when day after day, they get up out of their grim beds and throw themselves back into the thick of it. But most of all, this poem for Lorna Breen, 49, who loved to play cello and save other people's lives. Lorna Breen, who took her own life after saving many others, took her own life, who did herself and her family proud, who stood side by side with her colleagues, no place to hide from a terrible witness, offering all the strength in her all too human body in aid and comfort to the dead and dying, until there was just no more to give. For Lorna Breen. Thank you. Thanks. Good. Timing's good. Freedom. I read this 4 days ago. This is about racial justice in America. And there's an oblique reference to George Floyd. Freedom. How can words that have never done time in the throat of a man or woman held down by the kneecap of authority, express it. Locked up in the mouth of one of our own, for we are all one. Or crushed on the lips, collared by cops, or placed in solitary confinement, the outcast, the gerrymandered, the Jim Crowed. The only way to escape madness or absolute spiritual ruin, to fight back, to make a break for it. Tell it to me, America, how long in the grip of a captive land before a people crack, before the cries for freedom leak out? Philosophies that never made love under a willow tree among the buzzing insects. Treatises that never felt Mother Earth yield to their thunderous hooves. The native vowels and consonants plotting a comeback. Entire manifestos holed up in the belly of a slave ship. Whereas for me, I have never met a noun that languished in a prison cell. I have never known an adjective or a verb confined to a ghetto or reservation. I do not own the vocabulary of a man who has had to eat his words, or lie in wait in the darkness to waylay a stranger in order to feed and clothe my children. The sentences spill like hot new blood across a white page. Someone else committed these crimes. Who will ask the big questions of God, of men, of poetry? Thank you. Thanks. Good. And this one I wrote this morning. This is for the Supreme Court of the United States. So finally did something right. It's called Justice. I have a tendency to get up now at like 3 o'clock in the morning because I don't sleep anymore. Well, most of us don't sleep well because we're in the house all day, right? So I'm sure many of you are in the same situation. So I've taken that as not as a problem, but as an opportunity. So I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. This is my bird. You hear my bird? Yeah. And I'm like typing away poems on my cell phone in bed because I'm dreaming these poems, and then I dream that I've written them down. And then in my dream, I'm going like, I haven't written it down. I've got to get up. So I wake myself up and I write the poems in the middle of the night. And then sometimes I put them on Facebook by 5 o'clock in the morning. Other times I wait to edit them a little bit. This is one of those. I put it on at 5 o'clock. None of you, I'm sure, look at my poems, more than once very quickly on Facebook. But if you do, over the course of 5 hours, I'm constantly going back in there and editing and proofing it and changing things. So I think, but this is the final version. You want to get to a poem while the material's still fresh, like watercolor. Justice. The law of the land is an imperfect machine. When it is working right, it bales hay and shakes apples from the apple tree. A well-oiled machine which lifts up the man who treats it right and has kept his nose clean. Even as it pulls down the arrogant, the unruly, the intemperately mean. But when it is busted, the law of the land is the culprit. and establishes the very grounds for oppression and injustice to exist. We know this from the Jim Crow laws. Let's just be honest about this for 1 second, shall we? Justice is a door that swings both ways. Just ask the slaver and the slave. Intolerable to one, insurmountable to another. Absolutely unnatural and designed purely to control the weak and the downtrodden. A wall, hideous, inglorious, built by men. A river that will part for the faithless as readily as it will flood cities and fields, drag down the innocent and the dispossessed, and casually as the swiftest crook, yes. But just when you think it is a terrible machine that'll never work right, justice comes through. A mountain too high, a barrier too wide for crook or con man to cheat his way around. And then, ain't life grand? Tall enough to keep the evil and the grandiose from climbing too high. Passable enough, finally, to allow the innocent and the good-natured to occasionally slip through. Justice.
Well done, George. I think we got time for one more before we go to the open read.
One more. Too bad. I got 12 poems here. Okay. Then I'm going to do this one, a very short one for because this is, there's so many things happening, all these issues coming before us that we lose track of some of these things that are very, very important to us. And the refugee situation, I think, is one which transcends our particular refugee situation and goes all the way back to how Ulysses, how Ulysses was treated in the Odyssey. The concept of being a person cast aside and cast away and exiled and landing on some foreign shore, and how we're supposed to treat him, what the relationship should be between the exiled and the person who was the host for that exile. This goes back thousands of years, a major issue in human philosophy. Why are the refugee children smiling? Why are the refugee children smiling? The children you cage behind bars and walls and razor wire, they are not afraid of you. In fact, they are smiling. In every refugee camp, in every detention center around the world, you try to hold them in. Even as you count them captive, even as you punish them for your own sins, even as you parade them before cameras and lash them with the tongues of your ministers of hate, they see through your weakness. They see through your fear. They see through your crudeness and cruelty and the futility of your old world scapegoat ideologies. In fact, they see through your walls. What do they see? They see a future without you in it. And that's why the refugee children are smiling. Thank you very much.
That was absolutely wonderful, George.
Dan,
Yes.
so I'd just like to say something here. To have George, our first poet laureate of Suffolk County, it's quite an honor.
Mhm.
I would want to take a vote and see if he said he has 12 poems. Could we go another, I don't know,
It's all
20?
right, don't worry about it.
Yeah, Kathy,
Oh,
yeah,
If there's time, I'll read you more.
yeah, we'll have time. We've got quite a few folks that want to read. We'll bring back George for the encore. And George, if you're agreeable, maybe we'll have you flex and do a few more at the encore.
I'll keep reading till that bird shuts up.
Okay. So thank you, Kathy. We'll give George more time at the end. We do have quite a few folks, and I agree with you. I'll keep my summary of George's poems brief, but George, we're all in for winter. The driving across country and the broken eggs and the beautiful. I'll never forget the name of that physician that you talked about, and the knee upon the neck, and the Supreme Court decision, and the smiling children. It's something I think will stick to all of us as we reflect on today. Okay, so let me change gears here a little bit. I'm going to share the screen. Okay, so here are the open read, and here are our ground rules here. We do have quite a few folks that have signed up to read. Hopefully I haven't mislaid the list. That would be kind of embarrassing if I just mislaid the list, but no, I got it right here. And the rule is that I've got all the names that we put in chat, and at the end of the chat, if I go through these, if I missed anyone, we'll just get you to wave your hand. Please, only one poem, and please no maximum of 5 minutes. Please wait to be called upon. And then we will do, Barbara will call it to an end. We'll bring back George for an encore, and looks like we will be flexing, and maybe we'll even go beyond 12:30 if necessary. So what I'm going to do in the open read, I'm going to call upon folks in the order that you signed up. We've got other people. George, this is the biggest group we've had. We've now got 33 poets with us, so that's a tribute.
Great, I look forward to it. I'm going to get another cup of tea while we're doing this.
Okay, great. So let me stop sharing. And I'm going to call you in threes. So the first one we had was Kelly, then we had Deborah, and then we had James from North Carolina. So why don't we start with Kelly? If you could come off mute, please.
Am I off?
Yep, you're on.
I'm on. Okay. Okay. It's great to hear George's voice. Great to hear everyone's voice. I'm just gonna get right to it. Okay. This is called Grapes and the Relief of the Apocalypse. This is not an evangelical, but early Christians had a problem when the end of the world didn't come. It wasn't that they wanted it to come. They just kept saying it until people finally gave up and said, okay, it's coming. But I have these mouths to feed and fishes to turn into loaves and rheumatism and laundry, always more and more and more laundry to fold and wash and fold and wash and fold. And they moved our favorite rock that us women used to gather together in community to wash our clothes on and gossip and talk about the end of the world and everybody's comings and goings, and perhaps talk a little treason amongst the linens, fine and not so fine, mixed together in one dystopian heartache that would lead to another and another. So, okay, the world is going to end, but until then, take off those filthy socks so I can wash them at our new spot down the river. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Kelly. Very timely. Very well done.
Very timely.
Deborah, you're up next. Deborah Hauser.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. I'm going to read my tribute to George. That cat. That cat is a well-worn, thoroughly read, dog-eared favorite paperback. Dig? A creased everyman's collection of beat poetry and root chakras, notated, imitated, revered, divine. An ivory-toothed alley cat on the prowl, praying a poem, purring a psalm, rhythm dripping from his paws. The brutal beauty of raw life, inking the page true with a beat tattoo from his palms. Catch him if you can, sacred, profane shaman, at the barn, the Bowery, beyond. That cat is on the road, in flight, out of sight. Dig that cat.
Thank you, Deborah. Well done. Okay, James, North Carolina, if you want to come off mute. James or Jay? Give him a second. James?
Okay, we off now?
Yep, there you go.
Okay, there we go. Okay, let me read this thing in 5 minutes here, okay? It's called God Created Unity and Infinity. God made each ship and sea with shore, our family and friends who we do adore, a wonderful wife who children did yield, and farmers' fragrant flowers in a field. For us God created each day and week, those who may be both humble and meek. Rivers which will run and tides that change, all planets and stars he did neatly arrange. God caused and created chemical reaction, addition, multiplication, along with subtraction. Every inch and unity combined with infinity, homes that God gave us and each amenity. God has made great seas that turn and toss. For his son to die on, he did create a cross. Needed strength and energy to give us, he gave, helped us in battle so we would be brave. Remember when in heaven God did meet, he was there sitting on his judgment seat. Regardless of appearance or color of skin, saved us from shortcomings and all our sin. Amen.
Thank you, James. Well done. And now we'll go to Barbara Branca. Barbara, if you turn on your mic.
Yes, I'm turned on. Can you hear me all right?
Loud and clear.
All right, that's great. I want to start by thanking you all, Dan and Barbara, and especially George, for kind of mentoring us these many years. So thank you, George. This is something that you've chosen to put in the Long Island Quarterly. Among glacial erratics, I feel relatively young among great slabs of granite. Their windows of mica seeing the past, from whence came these behemoths, some basaltic and brooding. Their calendar does not abide by yours, measured in millions of lifetimes, yet the beach only in thousands. The wind, the current, the tide, beholden to the ancient moon, take their measure, hold the waves up like blue glass cups, not breaking them till they can hold no longer, crashing into the quartz moraine, sparkling with golden jingle shells. Waves surge onto the stone-faced boulder that will not change in my lifetime. To it, I give up my burdens, release the stones around my neck. Glacial boulder, restore my youth. Wave, bathe my spirit. Wind, make my soul flutter and take flight.
Thank you, Barbara. We all feel young when we're compared to that ancient boulder. Okay, so now we're going to call them in threes. We've got Judy and then Vinita and then Richard. So let's start with Judy first.
There we go. Thank you, George. You never disappoint. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Barbara. Our poetry fix is in. November 19th, 2020. Too late to repent, the loss is gone, like beach bonfires on a blustery December night. Too soon to choir chorus praises for a Christmas filled with friends and family. Too much time spent missing what's missing when we have all we need now. Now, as in the present, now the present, the gift of gratitude for all we've got but have forgotten, for all we've done but haven't noticed, for all we can do but are crippled by the defeat of what we can't do. Everything is not canceled. Dance with slippered feet in your living room, or binge watch anything, old movie rescreening, sitcom canned laughing, maybe a documentary or mystery. Call an old friend, a new acquaintance, check on a neighbor or two, write a note or a letter long overdue. Stand in your backyard at midnight and converse with stars. Chat with the man in the moon. Waltz with a breeze of carefree. All has not stopped. Clocks still tell time, calendars still function, and your mind, though you think it is at a loss, is ready and waiting for you to tap in. Challenge yourself with a crossword puzzle. Start a story, or finally, work on your novel. Write a poem or play. Sketch your pet, a spring garden, a day at the beach when you smiled so much your cheeks hurt. Get out of your funk and your PJs. Go for a walk. Go for ice cream. Go for a stroll in a park or preserve. Go to bed early and wake up to a new day brimming with things that are not COVID canceled. Now, the gift of today, just days away from Thanksgiving, though not spent with a house full of relations, is still reason to rejoice, grateful for not missing anything. We have all we need now. Thank you.
Judy, that was beautiful and needed to be said on many levels. Thank you for that. Okay. In fact, okay, we go to Vanita now.
Hi,
Hey, Vanita.
can you hear me?
Yep, we can see you and we can see you smiling as well.
I'm with PNP Authors and this is my first time. This is a love poem I'm going to read. Lovers by the Rivers by the Grassland.
Oops, sorry, Vanita, sorry, we accidentally muted you there. Hold on one second. I'll get you right back. Okay, try it again now. You gotta turn your mic on again. Mine was my mistake, not yours. I wanted to mute myself and I muted you. So you gotta turn on your mic again, Vanita. There you go, you're back.
The Rivers by the Grassland. Shallow yet narrow, glowing from the sun with a spark as the dust of dawn, the rivers by the grassland. Shallow yet narrow, define the beauty of a lady walking nearby, holding her lover's hand as she turns to him, laughing and walking eloquently, wearing her long gown, dressed in pink, heels so high as she laughs at his jokes, the rivers by the grassland. As she gazes deeply into her lover's eyes, standing still and smiling at him, dreaming only to be with him for eternity, by the rivers by the grassland, only to hold him by her arms tightly and comfort him, whispering words of love deeply as she walks slowly by the rivers by the grassland.
Thank you, Vanita, for sharing that. And we're so grateful you're here and we hope you'll rejoin us again. That was very, very beautiful.
Thank you.
Enjoyed being with you at the river. Okay, so we're gonna go in this order. We've got Richard Bronson first, and then Bill Batcher, and then John DiCarlo. So Dr. Richard, if you could come on first.
Okie dokie. So first, thank you, George, for everything you've done. This is a very old poem. Actually, it's a poem I read about 20 years ago in a reading at the Northport Library that you had organized. How the colors got their names. God finished his work, sighed, wondered what he could do to crown his creation. Then he knew a bow of color crossing the firmament would be uplifting after gray skies, clouds crying their miseries. And there in the east, what was thought was done, for what to name the hues. He called Michael, fiercest of his archangels. I'd name that color red for the blood of battle, and the seraphim giggled in fright. He called Lucifer, archangel of light. That was before his fall into darkness. I'd name that color blue for sadness. As the sun dies each day, sadness of the moment you created time and all things had beginnings and ends. Then the names came quickly, green of grass that covered earth, orange and lemon, tart fruits of Eden, indigo for the bunting that adorn the skies of paradise, violet at the hearts of nebulae. Thank you.
Well done. A whole new understanding of colors now. Bill Batcher. Bill, you got to come off mute, Bill.
There we are. Okay, I'm going to read a poem from my book, Celebrations. It's a seasonal poem, Annunciation. Take him in your inmost being, in your womb. Carry him lovingly. Be filled with him. Be warmed as he grows within you. And giving life, be given life. Become increasingly consumed until you cannot keep him hidden any longer. Know you are chosen to harbor the holy and deliver him to a waiting world.
Thank you, Bill. Very moving. Okay, John DiCarlo.
Hi there. It's cold outside, but it's poetic inside, right? So there's a lot of discussion about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. So I want to do a plug for poetry. It's a short one. Towards a poetic science. If the universe could speak in verse, with atomic tongue, molecular lips, and genetic articulation, and the essence of poetry is what the words say without saying, then what has the universe been saying that has not yet been said? Thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, very thought-provoking. So we'll now go to Doreen, and then Emily Sue, and then Jack. So let's start with Doreen. If you want to come off mute, please.
Thanks so much. And George, a pleasure always. So glad I was able to get to this. I'm going to read, it's not so long ago that we were having Thanksgiving, and this is called Thanksgiving History Song. The tires are balding, yet I ride into town. There's a loaf of bread needed for this annual feast. My 20 friends and family have walked miles to greet and join in a moment of joy. The natives bring seeds and fruits and lessons. They teach us their ways. We plan to kill them and take what is rightfully ours. We don't even know we're Americans yet. Casinos of the future will redeem, pardon, unburden us, as school children will fall under the spell of Hollywood. It will be years, years after the casinos and cheap cigarettes when truth will dawn at the sight of smoke signals. We have been too busy being right and triumphant. All the school books have been edited. Someday a red man, a black man, a yellow man, a white man will laugh at the foolish bravado of the child Americans who played cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers while robbing natives, giving them a bad name, a bad costume, a bad reputation. And the movies glorified murder, and a turkey died for our sins. Thanks.
Emily Sue. Emily, you got to come off mute.
Yes. Hello. Thank you, George, for wonderful reading. And thanks everybody who's contributing today. I'd like to read Holidays with the Folks. Ghosts of family members past return, dab invisible tears, mend crevices in fragile hearts, 20-year-old memories still fresh. Again, we watch each other for cracks as another fades into the shadows. I look at my cousins' faces, recall them small. We talk of this and that, or not at all, yet know each other well. I used to wonder how aunts and uncles could boldly say they knew us. I see now we're of one fabric, a pat on the head, a peck beyond a cheek, a familiar sense of humor. Through boisterous years, awkward, rebellious, ambitious, peaceful years. A living history, inescapable like cookie cutter faces. Love whispered in the winter breeze pulls us together. Separate busy lives drop away. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily Sue. Just picture all those relatives. Okay, now we'll go to Jack and then Mark and then Don Billings. So Jack, over to you.
Okay, this is aptly called The Plague. Days flow through the wind like leaves on a cold autumn night, if there are trees to be found. The air cuts like shards of broken dreams. We walk the night and yearn for a candle. It's a lonely, dark road where the unseen dangers are always present. There is a chill in the wind as we look for a sliver of moonlight. The chilling winds don't care. It just freezes our tears and bites the face. We are in a frigid desert where an oasis can't grow. Just maybe a hardy cactus can be seen along the way. There's nothing left to do. Be sure you dress warm. There is nothing left to do. Protect yourself. By all means, protect yourself. And if you find another soul, speak a kind word, light a candle, stand vigil, and wait.
Very timely, Jack. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we'll go over to Mark.
Thank you, Dan. Hey, everyone. Thank you, George, for your teaching.
Mark, we're having a tough time hearing you. Mark, we're having.
Community college and
Okay, Mark, I'm sorry, I had to mute you. Just a moment, Mark.
How about now, Dan?
Yeah, that's better. Go ahead.
Okay. I guess with the camera off, maybe we're better. I was just saying, 14, 15 years ago, I went to the Teaching of Writing Festival at community college in Philly. I learned some poetry exercises from George that I still use with my high school students today in Smithtown. So thank you, George. Dan, you can hear me?
You're better now, Mark. We'll give you one more shot. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna try this one. It's called I Didn't Know. I didn't know I loved this rusty city until you were no longer in it.
Okay, Mark, I had to cut you off. I'm sorry. It's just the, you might try a little bit later, come back, we'll try you again, but the sound was, I just could not hear it and it was distracting. So I apologize for that. You might check a different connection. You might also try to do the dial-in option if that works out better for you. Okay, Don Billings. Don, who logged in as Ruth. Okay. Don? Okay. All right. Well, we don't have Don. How about, oh, there we are. How about Ed? Ed L.
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, Don.
I
Just go ahead.
Yeah, okay. This is Silent Visitor, a comment on our times. It was the holiday time when families gathered, a time of joy. In far-off Asia, a virus was spreading with speech and a cough. Holiday time, families traveling, moving all around the globe. From China to Italy, Spain to America moved the visitor. As families reunited, silently moved the visitor with a smile. When a doctor sent out the alarm, he was silenced, punished. Then the deaths were reported, just a few here and there. Someone said, "It will pass, it will be gone, like a miracle." Silently moved the visitor with open speech and a cough. The death toll climbed all over the world as he made his visit. Then the hospitals needed masks, gowns, ventilators. Someone said, "Everyone can get tested. We have the most tests." As it turned out, it wasn't tests. We had the most deaths. Bodies kept refrigerated in huge trucks by hospitals. Mass graves dug in Manhattan and all around the world. The doctors said, no gathering in groups, stay home. Wear a mask when out, wash your hands often. People stopped flying, the borders were closed to travelers. Someone said, it's not our fault. I closed the flights from China. Silently came the visitor from Spain and Italy to New York. Someone said, I want the churches filled at Easter. It'll be gone when the warm weather comes. Stay home was the cry, sequester, wash your hands. Businesses closed, bars, restaurants, factories, churches closed. Unemployment, the government sent out checks in the millions. In the markets, sanitizer, toilet paper, food items disappeared. Masks were required in supermarkets, spacing at the checkouts. Silently moved the visitor to the nursing homes. Someone said the governors will handle it. Onward moved the visitor to the meat packing plants. Someone said the packing plants must stay open. Hundreds infected and more, with open speech and a cough. Hospitals said we need tests, masks, gowns, swabs, reagents. By phone and text, we learned people we know have the virus. Family, people we know on ventilators, some have died. The governors opened the beaches, bars, churches, crowds with no masks. As they defy wearing masks, the visitor moves with laughter. With his deadly visit, now well over 100,000, perhaps you wonder, one day, you'll meet the visitor. He may come in a casual conversation, perhaps laughing. That was written, of course, in the middle of the pandemic, and the toll goes on.
Well done. Okay, okay, let's go to Ed L.
Hello.
Hello, Ed L.
Hello. Ed Loris here. I have here a poem that's made out of lines from a novel called The Waves by Virginia Woolf. It's called I See the Sky. One cannot go on forever. Without pausing, I will begin. The phantom was part of the flower. The black cat moved among the bushes. My feet feel the pinch of shoes. We can shut out these distracting voices. A woman couched beneath the horizon. Avoid these ready-made phrases. I will not conjugate the verb. I hear something stamping. Far off down the river, I hear the chorus now assume the sober and confident air of soldiers who saunter under yew trees. I cannot precisely lay fingers on this fact. I cannot follow any word through its changes. He seized her with the pajamas blown out hard between them. The apple tree leaves became fixed in the sky, the cherry tree with lumps of clear gum on the bark. All cries, all clamor are softly enveloped in silence. Human history is defrauded of a moment's vision. We are the first to come here. Now we march 2 by 2. I require the concrete in everything. Bang! They have thrown a chair now against the wall. You are all engaged, involved, drawn in. I see the sky, softly feathered with its subtle effulgence of moon.
Very creative, Ed. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, so now we're going to go Gloria and then Mark Jaggets. After Gloria, if you could come in. So Gloria, go ahead.
Do I unmute? Did I unmute?
You're fine. We can hear you fine.
But you can't see me, right?
Well, but we can hear your voice. Go ahead.
I stopped. I opened the video, but what happened?
Now we see you. Go ahead. You're on.
Oh, okay. Okay. This is called My Sister Changed Her Name for BB. Because we dwelled in a land of plastic-covered couches, pink porcelain ladies with tasseled lampshades, black speckled tiles my mother waxed every Friday on her knees, then covered with newspaper to keep the shine and the news a little longer. Because no one ever came to that place that smelled of pine sol and chicken soup, because this was an alien planet in the cosmos of Canarsie, where I, the high school dropout, put on this earth to drive my mother mad or kill her with what in Judaism was called the weapon of aggravation. Got knocked up and married a Gentile. And my sister, the quotes, good girl, at 16 ran rampant in Bloomingdale's, shoving in her bag things she could never, ever afford. Changed her name and hair color, made up her face like a China doll, seducing men with names like Bob the Bookie, Eddie the Eel, and became next in line to kill my mother with aggravation.
Gloria, very colorful family you got there.
Yeah, for sure.
Very, very well done. I think any family with two daughters and a mother got a kick out of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mark, we're going to give you another try. You're on your cell phone, hopefully.
How am I doing now?
You're doing
I'm
perfect.
good? All
You're
right,
worth
good.
waiting
Thank-
for. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. I hope so. All right, this poem is called I Didn't Know. I didn't know I loved this rusty city until you were no longer in it. The beautiful abandoned factories suddenly marring the view of the river. I didn't know what hurt feelings were until you burned my house down, burned my town down, burned my barns and my fields and all that I once cherished. I didn't know a piece of parchment isn't enough to protect a nation. That parchment burning like paper, that shield of freedom and illusion. I didn't know skin color is a pre-existing condition and potentially fatal to some. Symptoms include bullets in the back and jail cell bed sheets around necks, and there is as yet no known cure. I didn't know a virus could infect the soul even more than the body. Cells attacked as souls divide, no ventilator to ease this suffocation, no mask to hide this shame. And that's after Nazim Hikmat. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. That was quite moving. Okay, I'm going to change my view on screen here. We've got one more reader scheduled, but if there's anyone who would like to read who hasn't read, just wave your hand and I'll recognize you. Okay, Herb, I see you waving, so you got to come off mute, Herb.
Hello?
There you are, Herb. You're on.
Okay, so my turn to read?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, very good. Okay, by introduction, my wife, Lorenda, would have turned 64 tomorrow, St. Lucia's Day. Sadly, she avoided COVID, but not that other C word, cancer. She passed on All Souls Day, November 2nd, 2020. She used to go out with friends on Saturdays. I told a friend when he asked, "Where's Lorenda?" "Oh, she's out in Lorenda land." But Lorenda land is no more. I wake at noon and you are not in bed. The bathroom beckons me. Get up and pee. The clean shines more than Mr. Clean's bald head. The toilet's Kohler names clear. Makes me see the order of our home. Clean floors and hall led me to soap, shampoo, and toothbrushes lined such as would make drill instructors bawl. The kitchen cabinets racked like pool balls. Such is your organizing skill. Like bowling pins, the furniture is set. Are you in your Lorenda land? Be home before begins night's dark. I know you will, your vision's poor. But now, Lorenda land, like Santa land, time stole. You won't be coming home, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Herb. That was beautiful. And thank you for sharing your grief with us. I can think of, all the different ways of grieving, capturing it in poetry is just beautiful. So we thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, Just going to do one more scan of the audience. We have one more person waiting to read. Okay, I see Barbara. Go ahead, Barbara. You got to come off mute. Should be right. There you go, Barbara.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, this is short, kind of seasonal. Waterfall veiled in fallen leaves, coy, slowed by cold. Naked branches twist, reach for sun, shape the ground in light and shadow. Solstice approaches, augur of renewal at the end of winter's deep. Hearing the stars we breathe crisp air, candle the light, shelter in place. And I cleverly forgot to read the title, which is Shelter. So thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Well done. Look, you're getting all these hands clapping here. Okay. Okay.
I saw Tony Policano. I thought Tony Policano wanted to read it.
Okay, Tony, are you there?
Yeah, I mean, if
Go
you
ahead.
have time.
Go ahead, Tony.
Okay. My poem is called Make Me a Gettysburg. And it was kind of based upon a dream and merged with current events. Make me a Gettysburg, she asked. I sprang to action. Goose waddled to the cabinet, a conscript in boxer shorts and tea. Now, what makes sense in the context of 2020's pandemic disease and societal division? Let's start with a Tennessee mash, the darker the better. Add a dash of bitters to mask the blame, mixing up a concoction to hide the country's mortal and economic unease. With the steady hand, I don't let slip my historical ignorance, my bartending blundering, my overactive amygdala, nip-biting chocolates, putting them back in the wrapper, thinking she wouldn't notice, and did she really mean a Gettysburg and all it implied? She did casually say the South chose a lovely gray for their uniforms, that General Lee could have won the battle and turned the war. And with each call of duty, millions of sperm are lost to oblivion, she laughed, because men don't know how to ask for directions. I lasso my lassitude, kickstart my libido, toss darts at that divine oval of desire, aiming for my target. Oh my God, it's old school optimism keeps me Google searching procreation versus a civil war. With pistol finger loaded, trigger cocked and pointed at the moon, I stand by an open window, contemplating the sea of fertility, the sea of crises, while briskly shaking my lucky ice.
Well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so this year has been like a few others, fortunately, and as we reflect back on this year, I'm old enough to remember 1968, and the year that we went through in 1968. And I'm mindful as I read this that today is the second day of Hanukkah to all my Jewish friends out there. And of course, Christians are preparing for Christmas. So this poem is called Merry Christmas from the Moon. Of all my 60 years, 1968 was the most memorable. On New Year's Eve that year, I became a teenager. New Year's Eve is my birthday. And I reflected on all that happened my last year as a child. The North Koreans seized the USS spy ship Pueblo in January. Walter Cronkite told America the Vietnam War was lost in February, and I wondered if America was still capable of winning wars. President Johnson announced that he would not run for re-election in March, and Martin Luther King was shot dead in April. Like Moses, he saw the promised land, but he never entered it. President de Gaulle mobilized troops to put down a Paris Revolution in May, and Bobby Kennedy was assassinated in June. Troops were still more powerful than protesters, and a strategic bullet could change the direction of history. Arlo Guthrie first sang Alice's Restaurant at the Newport Folk Festival in July, and Soviet tanks crushed the Prague Spring in August. As the Hungarians learned in 1956, there was no place for reform behind the Iron Curtain. The National Organization of Women burned bras at the Miss America pageant in September, and Tommy Smith and Tom Carlson gave the Black Power salute during the Star-Spangled Banner at the Mexico Olympics in October. Women and Blacks would no longer be ignored. Tricky Dick Nixon was elected winner of the presidential election in November, and many argue that God was dead and that America had lost its way. On Christmas Eve, I returned home after my first midnight mass and turned on TV. And the picture on the screen was of the Earth from the moon. And 3 astronauts took turns reading from the Torah, or the book of Genesis, and the whole world was watching. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, "Let there be light." And there was light, and God saw the light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and darkness he called night. And in the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from waters." And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called the seas. And God said that it was good. It's difficult to imagine the uproar astronauts reading the Bible on national TV would cause today. But reflecting back on 1968 and all that we had endured that year, seeing our own island home from space and hearing God say it was good was just what the country and the world needed to hear that night, Christmas Eve, 1968. Merry Christmas and peace on earth from the crew of Apollo 8. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go back. I see if there's anyone else before we call back George for an encore. Oh, do I see James Engel? James, is that you? With a peace sign, like to read. Go ahead, James. Can't argue with a peace sign. You got to turn off. There you go, James.
Yes, we're neighbors. I saw you. I walked past the church this morning.
I recognize that smiling face.
I just want to thank Kathy and you. And this is the first time I'm kind of sitting in on this virtual thing, and I'm blessed by the refreshment of all you beautiful souls. Anyway, I just thought of a song that I had written a while back, and I just wanted to share the first verse. Come, all you weary. Too many lives are broken, hearts are torn, dreams unspoken where our love is scorned. In a world of trouble, there is a light. In the midst of darkness, a love shines so bright. If we only listen, we will hear. A voice is calling, come on near. Come on near. Come, all you weary. Come, you burdened down, and I will give you rest unto your souls. Come.
Thank you, James. Beautiful addition. Okay. Anyone else before we bring back George for an encore or two? Okay, I don't see any waving hands. I don't see Barbara or Kathy or anyone else telling me, or George, that I missed anybody. So George, it's a pleasure to welcome you back. George, you got to turn on your mic. George, you're still not, your mic is still not on. You had it on? There you go.
Now?
You are ready.
Beautiful. You can't double click it. It goes back into mute.
You're all set.
Right. So it's great to see so many people. You know, we would ordinarily be joining for our annual Long Island Poetry Collective holiday party at the barn this time of year. So this is in some ways in lieu of that. It's really heartwarming to see so many old friends. And so those of you who are the first time with us, thanks for coming. This poem is for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Maybe one of the most monumental losses of the year for so many people. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This is from her obit. It mentions her law partner when she was arguing her first case before the Supreme Court as a young lawyer. So that's Feigen's name is in here too. So those are the things that you need to know. Ruth Bader Ginsburg loved opera. And opera loved her back, said the headline in the obit in New York Times. That was September 19th, 2020, the day after she died. But when RBG, all 5'1" of her, stood before the all-male, all-white, except for Thurgood Marshall, Supreme Court of the United States to defend the right of an Air Force lieutenant, a female Air Force lieutenant, to be breadwinner to her family, and earned all the benefits accruing to that position, as would any of her Air Force colleagues. She didn't have opera on her mind. Summoning the combined power of Carmen, Leonore, Manon Lescaut, and Turandot, i.e. all the feisty opera heroines and all the opera libretto, to her mortal frame, 5'1", she showed the entire world of American jurists exactly what a woman who will not be tamed is made of. The 9 leading jurists of the land were dumbstruck. Not one justice could say a word. Not even William Rehnquist, Nixon's big mouth buddy. Her head was in the law, said Brenda Feigen, RBG's law partner in the Frontiero case, with a helpless little laugh, and sometimes in the opera. When asked to render their decision on the question, did a federal law requiring different qualification criteria for male and female military spousal dependency unconstitutionally discriminate against women, therefore violating the Fifth Amendment's due process clause? The Supreme Court of the United States answered with one word: yes. What toll it took on 5'1" Ruth Bader Ginsburg that day, no one of us may know. However, Feigen later admitted this: after arguing the case, Ruth, Brooklyn's fiercest, most notorious, and most emotionally drained woman warrior of the day, had to be physically carried to the Washington airport for the flight home. It was the opening salvo in a war for women's rights worthy of opera. Consider the case of Turandot, who fought to restore the power of her ancestress of millennia past, Principessa Lu Ling, who had reigned over her domain in silence and joy, resisting the harsh dominion and domination of men until conquered by the Tartars. You princes arriving in such glory, proudly seeking further conquest, she declared. Not in this palace. I take my revenge on you for all she suffered, added Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The date, January 17th, 1973. And on that note, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, all 5'1" of her, waged a war to restore the power of women in America for 47 more years, leaving a grateful nation dumbstruck with her power prowess, speechless with praise.
That's George. Well done. George, it's 12:20. but I know people really consider this a special treat to have you read. So could you just do one more before we call Barbara back to close?
You want one more?
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Good. All right, this is a peace poem I was saving for the last. You know, many of these poems happen day after day. I was in a Facebook challenge to take a picture from a newspaper and write, you know, an ekphrastic piece on it. So Ruth Bader Ginsburg was one. This one was a picture of a Palestinian boy in the West Bank, you know, working in his father's honey farm. You know, where his father's a beekeeper, and it showed him helping his dad as a beekeeper in the land of peace and honey, land of milk and honey. This poem is called "Peace is Honey." Peace is not the absence of war. It is sweet milk in a clean bucket. It is the bleating of goats in an honest man's yard. Peace is the honking of geese in a pond, cicadas chirping in tall grass. Peace is olive presses, wine presses, harvesters clamoring for more fruit in the foothills of the lower Galilee. More than silence of dawn with no rockets to disturb it. Peace is roosters crowing, hens clucking, plow points, shovels, stiff rakes and hoes rattling in the back of a pickup truck. It is the buzz of harvest machines combing the harmonious land, horizon to horizon, feeding all the children, all the women, all the men without prejudice, giving all the people in the land full employ. Peace is Palestinian boys in the apiaries of Dura, west of Hebron, working their father's hives. It is a cloud of honeybees hovering over the rooftops of a kibbutz, Ayelet Hasha Ahar. Peace is not just the absence of small arms fire or treaty signing ceremonies in faraway capitals. It's more than just who gets what, who loses what, and both sides have to accept it. Peace is more than the absence of war. Peace is wild ducks splashing in the Jordan River. It is the shared laughter of workers in a field. Peace is honey and milk in the land of milk and honey. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Beautiful, George. So fitting, given where we are in the world and time of year that it is. So thank you. Barbara, if I could call you back. Barbara Southern. Give Barbara some bit of mic on. Barbara, I know you're there.
Okay, that's tricky, that unmuting thing. You know? All right.
And Barbara, if you want, you can turn your camera on. Your camera's off as well, but that's up to you.
All right. Video.
There you are.
Okay. All I can say is that George's poems have always blown me away, and today is no exception. They were just, I'm ready to go out into the day. I bet you are too. I mean, we all need each other. We need each other's poetry. It just is so renewing to gather together and get through this together, and then just go out there and deal what's out there to deal with. It's wonderful seeing every one of you. It's just pure joy. Next month, we're going to have Maggie Bloomfield, and I would like to show you her book. I have her book, and this is her latest one. It's called Sleepless Nights by Maggie Bloomfield, and she'll be reading next month in January. And you know, she is a co-host for the Poetry Street South, and it's a wonderful venue in Southampton. If you get a chance, you should really tune in on Zoom and go to the reading. I think the next reading is December 26th. I'm not sure, but you can check.
This is the point where we start to play with new calendars. So remember, we're the second Saturday's poetry reading, so that would actually be January 8th. January 8th would be the next reading.
Of what?
Oh, the way I'm skipped. Wait, I looked at 2022. I told you it was tricky. It's January 9th. I'm sorry. Would be the second Saturday. The next poetry.
Okay, very good. Okay, so thank you very much, and have a very good weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Great that you could join us. If you have any feedback on today, any suggestions, please send us an email. Have a great day. everyone.
Thank you, George.
Dan?
Thank you,
Dan,
Dan.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And George, wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Is this